On the morning of my wedding, I found a message on my fiancé's phone that said, if I couldn't marry you, it never mattered who stood beside me at the altar. The message was not meant for me. It was meant for Vanessa Hart, the first love Adrian Whitmore had supposedly left in the past. By then, I was already wearing my wedding dress. The ballroom of a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago was filling with 200 guests. My father was checking the seating cards for the third time. My mother was crying over the flowers. The quartet was warming up near the doors, and the photographer kept asking me to turn toward the window because the winter light looked beautiful on my veil. Everything was ready except for one strange detail. Adrian's closest friends were missing. There were 4 of them, men who had been beside him since college. They had attended every birthday, every graduation, every family holiday. 2 of them had been in our engagement photos. One was supposed to give a toast. Not one of them had shown up. I told myself there had been a flight delay, a family emergency, anything that made sense. Then Adrian walked into the bridal suite, kissed my forehead, and handed me his phone. "The hotel manager may call," he said. "I'm going downstairs to meet Professor Holbrook. Can you keep an eye on it?" He looked exactly like the man I had planned to marry, calm, handsome, perfectly composed in a dark tuxedo. I remember thinking that in less than an hour, I would be his wife. The screen lit up before he reached the door. A group chat notification appeared. "You told us years ago that if the woman at the altar wasn't Vanessa, we didn't have to attend. I'm keeping my promise. I'm not coming to pretend this is romantic." Another message followed immediately. "Same. You loved Vanessa for years, and now you're marrying a woman who looks enough like her to make everyone uncomfortable. No thanks." I stared at the words until they blurred. A woman who looked enough like her. I had seen old photographs of Vanessa once, years before. Dark hair. Pale skin. Similar height. Adrian had closed the album so quickly that I barely registered her face. At the time, I had thought his reaction meant the breakup still hurt. I had not thought it meant he had chosen me because I reminded him of her. Below the group chat was a pinned conversation with an unsaved number ending in 0214. The newest message had arrived 30 minutes earlier. "If we had never broken up, would you have married me?" Adrian had answered with one word. "Yes." Then, as if that were not enough, he had added another sentence. "If it couldn't be you, it never really mattered who it was." There was a long pause before the woman replied. "That is all I needed to know. My flight to London leaves tomorrow. I hope you have a happy life." My fingers went numb around the phone. Cold air pushed through the cracked window and lifted the edge of my veil. My stomach rolled so violently that I had to grip the vanity. Then applause rose from the ballroom. I stepped to the doorway and looked down the aisle. Adrian was seated at the grand piano beneath the chandelier. The man who forgot anniversaries, disliked public emotion, and had once called surprise parties socially organized hostage situations, was playing Beethoven for me. The MC announced that the groom had prepared a private wedding dedication. Guests sighed. My mother pressed both hands to her heart. The photographer turned toward me, eager to capture my reaction. Another message appeared in Adrian's group chat. "Vanessa's flight boards in an hour. She starts her new job in London next week. She may not come back for years. I'm only telling you once." A second line followed. "The one who got away." Then her name. Vanessa Hart. I looked at Adrian at the piano, his expression solemn and beautiful under the lights, and I almost laughed. The wedding was not a celebration of our future. It was a memorial for the love story everyone believed he should have had. His friends were refusing to attend out of loyalty to Vanessa. His family had watched me choose invitations and flowers while knowing I occupied another woman's place. Adrian was performing tenderness for me while privately telling Vanessa that anyone else would have been interchangeable. And I was the only person in the room who had not known. I connected his phone to the ballroom display. The giant screen behind the piano changed. For 2 seconds, the words appeared in white against the dark chat background. "If IT couldn't be you, IT never really mattered who it was." Then every light in the ballroom went out. The piano stopped on a hard, broken note. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped. Glass shattered near the back tables. "Everyone stay calm," Adrian called through the darkness. "It is probably a circuit issue." The hotel staff will handle it. His voice was steady enough to settle the room. Mine was not. The message had been visible too briefly for most guests to read. People near the front whispered, glancing between the screen and the piano. The rest assumed the blackout was part of a technical failure. Adrian's younger sister, Megan, found me near the stage. She slipped her arm through mine and forced a bright smile. "He has played since he was 5, she whispered. "He never performs for anyone outside competitions. You must be the only woman he has ever done this for." I turned to look at her. "What about Vanessa?" Her smile vanished. Her hand dropped from my arm. She did not ask who Vanessa was. That silence told me everything. The lights came back. Adrian crossed the room and pulled me into his arms before I could step away. "It was only a power failure," he murmured. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." His hand moved in slow circles over my back. I had never been afraid of the dark. I stood still during storms. I slept without a nightlight. I was the person who checked the fuse box when the power went out. But Adrian held me as though I might shake apart. A memory surfaced. At dinner months earlier, my best friend had watched Adrian remove fish bones from my plate, peel my shrimp, wipe sauce from my fingers, and pull a hair tie from his pocket when my hair fell forward. "Men are not born carrying hair ties," she had joked. "Are you sure another woman didn't train him this well?" Adrian's expression had changed for half a second. I had ignored it. Now every thoughtful habit seemed to carry another woman's shadow. I pushed him away. The room quieted. Adrian looked confused. "Did I hurt you?" "Tell me something," I said. "Am I afraid of the dark, or is Vanessa afraid of the dark?" His face went still. Only for a moment. Then he gave me the patient, tired smile he used when he thought I was being emotional. "Evelyn, that was years ago. Today is our wedding. Why are you bringing her into this?" "Because you brought her into it before I arrived." His jaw tightened. "I am marrying you. Isn't that enough?" That was the moment something inside me became completely clear. He believed marriage was a prize I should accept without asking what it meant. He could love Vanessa, remember Vanessa, choose my ring for Vanessa, comfort me the way he had comforted Vanessa, and still expect gratitude because I was the woman receiving his last name. I took the phone from his hand, walked to the center of the stage, and reached for the microphone. The MC hesitated. I did not. "I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time," I said. My voice echoed through the ballroom. "This wedding is canceled." For one full second, no one moved. Then the room erupted. My mother stood so quickly that her chair fell backward. Adrian's mother covered her mouth. Guests whispered, phones appeared, and the photographer lowered his camera as if he had suddenly become ashamed of being there. I pulled off my veil and placed it beside the abandoned bouquet. I had imagined walking down that aisle for 3 years. I had pictured Adrian waiting beneath flowers, looking at me as though no one else existed. Instead, I walked away from him while everyone watched. Footsteps rushed after me. I hated myself for stopping. Some foolish part of me still believed Adrian would apologize. I thought he might finally say the messages were cruel, that he had made a terrible mistake, that he would spend the rest of his life proving I had not been a replacement. He caught up near the ballroom doors and took the microphone from my hand. "Do not do this in front of everyone," he said under his breath. "We have 200 guests here. Do you want both families publicly humiliated?" My hope died so quietly that I almost did not feel it. Megan grabbed my elbow. "At least finish the ceremony and discuss this privately," she said. "They're emotional messages. Adrian chose to build a life with you. What else do you need him to prove?" I stared at her. "Your brother called me interchangeable on our wedding day. He and Vanessa had a complicated history. People do not erase years of love just because they move forward." "Move forward?" "He told her he would have married her. But he is here with you." Her voice carried the certainty of someone explaining an obvious fact. "He chose reality. You are destroying everyone's day over a past relationship that never properly ended. Everyone's day. Not my life. Not my marriage. Not my dignity. Everyone's day." A sharp pain cut through my lower abdomen. I bent forward and pressed a hand against my dress. Adrian reached for me, but his phone began vibrating again. He looked at the screen. His entire expression changed. One of his friends had written, Vanessa's flight was delayed. She saw the wedding photos and is crying at the airport. Are you really going to let her leave without saying goodbye? Adrian was silent for several seconds. Then he adjusted the edge of my veil as though the wedding were still happening. Stay here and take care of the guests, he said. Give me 1 hour. I'll go to the airport, say goodbye, and come back. Then I will explain everything to you, your parents, and everyone in this room. I straightened slowly. This is our wedding. I know. And you are leaving me here to go to another woman. Frustration flickered across his face. Vanessa is moving to London. She may be gone for years. I need to close this chapter properly. You had years to close it. He turned away. I followed him through the lobby, lifting my dress to keep from falling. Adrian. He reached his car. Vanessa deserves an explanation, I shouted. What about me? If you leave me standing here in a wedding dress, don't I deserve one too? He closed the door. The engine drowned out whatever else I said. His car pulled away from the hotel without slowing. I stood beneath the entrance canopy while snow began to fall beyond the curb. That was the moment I stopped begging. Not because I had become strong. Because I suddenly had nothing left to ask for. I returned to the ballroom alone. The whispers stopped when I stepped through the doors. My father looked at my face, then at the empty space behind me. Where is Adrian? He asked. I could have protected him with a lie. I could have said there was an emergency, that the ceremony was postponed, that guests should enjoy dinner and leave quietly. Instead, I took the microphone again. There will be no ceremony, I said. The groom left to meet the first love he never got over. Please accept my family's apology for bringing you here. My father's face drained of color. He had spent his life in lecture halls and public meetings, unshaken by criticism, funding battles, or professional humiliation. Professor Daniel Carter did not bend easily. But when he looked at me in my torn veil, surrounded by people who had just watched my fiancé choose another woman, his hand went to his chest. He collapsed before I could reach him. The ballroom became chaos. Someone called 911. My mother knelt beside him, crying his name. I tore the train from my dress so I could get close enough to hold his hand. By the time the ambulance arrived, my palms were slick with cold sweat. At the hospital, the doctor explained that my father had experienced a stress-induced collapse with an abnormal cardiac rhythm. He had not suffered a major heart attack, but the event could not be dismissed. He needs observation, the doctor said. And he needs to avoid another emotional shock. My mother sat beside his bed all night. I sat near the window in the same wedding dress, covered by a hospital blanket because no one had thought to bring me a coat. At 2 a.m, my phone lit up. One of Adrian's friends had posted an Instagram story. The photograph was taken at O'Hare Airport. Vanessa stood in front of the windows with tears on her face. Her hands were twisted in Adrian's lapels. Adrian was kissing her with his eyes closed, one hand cradling the back of her head. I had never seen that expression on him. Not when he proposed. Not when I walked into the ballroom. Not in any photograph from our 3 years together. The caption read, "Sometimes you need one last embrace before moving on. Once you lose the love of your life, happiness may never look the same. One last embrace." Their mouths were pressed together. His wedding ring was not yet on his hand, but my ceremony was still waiting behind him. I took a screenshot. Then another, showing the username and time. I saved both to a cloud folder with the chat messages, the canceled wedding contract, and every document I might later need. I did not comment. I did not call him. I turned off my phone and pulled the blanket higher over my father's chest. For the rest of the night, I reviewed every moment of my relationship as if I were examining a building after a collapse, searching for the first crack. Adrian and I had met at one of my father's public architecture lectures. I was 22, finishing my final year. Adrian was 25, a graduate researcher working in a different studio. He did not teach my classes, grade my work, or control any part of my education. I had answered 3 structural mechanics questions incorrectly in a row. Adrian, seated beside me, leaned over and circled a formula in my notes. "Use this one," he whispered. "Please stop guessing." His handwriting was terrible, like a child's printing pressed against my neat lines. I laughed. He looked offended for half a second, then laughed too. Later, he saw me holding my father's arm outside the lecture hall and assumed Professor Carter was dating a student. His horrified apology became an office joke for months. My father eventually asked Adrian to help me review a few difficult concepts outside class. Adrian was patient. He organized my notes. He remembered which formulas confused me. When an anonymous campus forum began speculating that we were dating, he asked me out properly. I had believed the relationship grew naturally. Now I remembered the way he stared at me the first time we met. Had it been attraction? Or recognition? Had he seen Evelyn Carter, or had he seen a woman with Vanessa's dark hair and quiet expression? By sunrise, I no longer trusted a single memory. The next morning, I left the hospital to collect clothes and medication for my father. Adrian stepped out of the elevator as I unlocked my apartment. His tuxedo was wrinkled. His eyes were red. He carried a bouquet of wilted roses and a white bakery box. When he saw me, relief crossed his face. Evelyn. He moved to embrace me. I stepped aside. His arms stopped in the air. I'm sorry, he said. I know leaving made you feel abandoned. But when I reached Vanessa, she thought I had run away from the wedding for her. She became hysterical and started hyperventilating. I could not leave her alone. I looked at him. He had, in fact, run away from the wedding for her. Yet he spoke as though the misunderstanding were hers. I stayed until she calmed down, he continued. That is why I didn't return last night. You kissed her. His gaze shifted. It was emotional. It was goodbye. Your friend called her the love of your life. He was being dramatic. You told her it didn't matter who you married if it wasn't her. I was trying to give her closure. Every fact became something softer when it passed through his mouth. A betrayal became a misunderstanding. A kiss became a goodbye. A declaration of love became closure. He held out the roses. We can have the wedding again. Bigger. Better. I will pay for everything. I promise you will have a day you never forget. I took the flowers only because I did not want him to touch me. Then I placed them in the farthest corner of the room. My father had a severe allergy to roses. Adrian had worked with him for years. He had eaten dinner in my parents' home. He had heard my mother remind guests not to bring certain flowers. He had forgotten. He opened the bakery box. You probably haven't eaten. I brought your favorite blueberry cake. He lifted a forkful toward me. The smell of frosting hit my stomach. I turned away and gagged. Adrian did not ask why. His attention dropped to my left hand. Where is your ring? I held the edge of the counter until the nausea passed. His voice sharpened. Evelyn, I know I made a mistake. I will apologize. We can reschedule the ceremony. But I went to the airport to close an unfinished chapter. You humiliated both families in public, and now you have taken off the ring. Isn't that enough? I looked at him in disbelief. He had left our wedding, kissed another woman, and spent the night with her. But my bare finger was the act he considered cruel. If that is how you see it, I said, then I have something too. His phone began to ring. The song was Lord Huron's The Night We Met. I knew the song. It was about wanting to go back before everything had been lost. In 3 years, I had never heard that ringtone. It belonged only to Vanessa. Adrian looked at the screen. His expression softened before he answered. Hey, don't cry. He turned partly away from me. No, you did not ruin anything. I'm here. Just wait for me. When he ended the call, he glanced back. What were you going to say? My lower abdomen tightened again. I looked at the man who had just promised me another wedding and, in the same breath, told another woman to wait for him. Nothing. Evelyn Dash. She is waiting. You should go. His brows drew together. I already told you I am going to resolve this. Why do you keep using that tone to push me? I nearly laughed. He was the one walking toward the door. Yet, somehow I was pushing him. The phone rang again. Adrian checked it and exhaled. I'll take her to her hotel and come back. Pack what your father needs. I'll meet you at the hospital this afternoon. The door closed behind him. A few seconds later, I looked down. A dark red stain was spreading across the pale fabric of my skirt. The pain sharpened until I had to brace myself against the wall. I called a car and went to the hospital alone. The ultrasound technician became very quiet. The doctor asked when my last period had been, repeated the scan, and ordered blood work. Then she sat beside me. "You are approximately 7 weeks pregnant," she said. "But we cannot detect cardiac activity. With the bleeding and your hormone levels, I am concerned that the pregnancy has stopped developing." For several seconds, I heard nothing else. So I had been right. I had something too. A child. A child who had existed inside me while Adrian played the piano for a wedding he was willing to abandon. A child he would never know until it was already gone. A second scan confirmed the loss. The nurse handed me consent forms for a procedure under sedation. "You may sign for yourself," she explained. "But an adult must take you home, and you should not be alone tonight." My father was under cardiac observation upstairs. My mother had not slept. The child's father was comforting Vanessa. I reached for my phone to call my best friend, Evelyn. I turned. Ethan Cole stood at the end of the corridor carrying my father's glasses and winter coat. Ethan had been one of my father's strongest graduate students years earlier. He had worked in New York before returning to Chicago to co-found Northline Architecture. We had met several times at academic dinners and project openings, but we were not close. His eyes moved from my hospital bracelet to the consent forms in my hand. He did not ask what had happened. He did not ask whether Adrian knew. He did not ask whose child it was. "Your father is stable," he said. "Your mother asked me to bring these upstairs." Then he paused. "Do you need me to contact someone?" The question nearly broke me. Not, "What did you do?" Not, "Why are you here alone?" Only, "Who do you need?" "No," I said. "I can handle it." Ethan glanced at the form, then back at me. "All right." He did not take the pen from my hand. He did not make a decision for me. "Then I will wait outside and drive you home, because the hospital requires someone to do that. After that, you can decide what you want me to know." When I woke from the procedure, rain had started against the windows. My abdomen ached with a heavy emptiness. Ethan placed a cup of warm water beside me and draped his coat over my shoulders. "The doctor said you need rest." I stared at the steam rising from the cup. "Aren't you going to ask?" "You will tell me if you want me to know." "And if I never do?" He pressed the elevator button. Then it was never information I was entitled to. The doors opened. In that moment, I understood something Adrian had never taught me. Respect was not a person saying, "I know what is best for you." Respect was a person leaving the choice in your hands, even when you were too exhausted to hold anything else. Ethan drove me home after the hospital discharged me. Adrian's car was parked outside my building. The trunk was open. 2 large suitcases sat on the sidewalk. I knew before I entered the apartment that something else had been taken from me. Vanessa was sitting on my couch. She wore my slippers and held my favorite ceramic mug between both hands. Her luggage was open near the coffee table. A coat I did not recognize hung beside mine in the entryway. Adrian stood in my kitchen pouring hot water into a second cup. When he saw me, his first expression was irritation. "Where have you been?" "I've called you." The hospital bracelet was still around my wrist. I said nothing. Vanessa rose quickly. She was beautiful in a fragile, deliberate way. Dark hair fell around a pale face. Her eyes were swollen from crying. I could see enough of myself in her to understand what Adrian's friends had meant, and enough difference to feel sick that they had compared us at all. "Evelyn, please do not misunderstand," she said. "The airline moved my flight to tomorrow morning, and my short-term rental has already ended. Adrian said I could stay here for one night." I looked at the slippers on her feet. They were one half of a matching pair Adrian and I had bought on a trip to Wisconsin. He used to joke that no guest could wear them because our initials were stitched into the fabric. Vanessa's foot covered the E. Adrian followed my gaze, but showed no embarrassment. Instead, he noticed Ethan behind me. "Why did he bring you home?" I took my keys from my purse and placed them on the entry table. "This apartment belongs to me," I said. "My parents gave it to me after graduation. My name is the only name on the deed, the building registration, and the access account." Adrian's face changed. "What are you doing? You have never been a legal resident here. Vanessa has never been an invited guest of mine. You have 15 minutes to collect your belongings and leave." Vanessa went pale. "I truly have nowhere to go tonight. There are hotels in Chicago." She is not well, Adrian said. Then take her to a hospital. His jaw tightened. Evelyn, must you be this cruel? She is alone in the country until her flight. It is one night. This is my home, I said. Not an emergency shelter for the woman you kissed at our wedding. Vanessa's eyes filled. That kiss was my fault. I was emotional. I kissed him. He could have stepped away. She looked at Adrian. He did not deny it. We are only friends, he said. Friends do not need a private love song as a ringtone. Friends do not ask whether they would have married each other on someone else's wedding day. Friends do not test each other at an airport and celebrate when a bride is abandoned. His eyes dropped to my wrist. You went to the hospital? I looked directly at him. This was another chance. One more moment in which he could ask about me first. I had a procedure. What procedure? Before I could answer, Vanessa pressed a hand to her chest. Her breathing became fast and shallow. Adrian turned away from me immediately. Vanessa, look at me. Slow down. In through your nose. He guided her to the couch, kneeling in front of her as though no one else existed. He did not look back at my hospital bracelet. The final uncertainty inside me disappeared. I called the front desk. Please send building security to my unit. 2 unauthorized visitors are refusing to leave. Adrian stood. Evelyn, you have 12 minutes. Do not threaten me in the home we were supposed to share. You were supposed to marry me yesterday. That did not make it happen. Ethan remained in the hall. He did not step inside or speak for me. When building security arrived, Adrian finally dragged the suitcases toward the door. Vanessa paused beside me. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. Then you should have chosen a question that did not require using my wedding as the answer. Adrian heard me. He said nothing. After they left, Ethan picked up the slippers Vanessa had worn and dropped them into a trash bag. Do you want the locks changed? He asked. Yes. That evening, I canceled Adrian's temporary building code, hired a locksmith, and called an attorney. Adrian and I had obtained a marriage license before the ceremony. However, our officiant had not signed it because the ceremony never reached the vows. Nothing had been filed with Cook County. Legally, we were not married. Adrian had wanted the officiant to sign after the ceremony, so the symbolic and legal moments would happen together. The unfinished document became the one mercy he had accidentally left me. I packed everything he had stored in my apartment. Shoes, books, a coffee grinder, half a closet of tailored shirts, the framed photograph from our engagement party. At the bottom of a desk drawer, I found a small metal box secured by a number lock. The code was 0214. Valentine's Day. Inside were photographs of Vanessa, movie ticket stubs, faded notes, a black hair tie, and a page torn from an old jewelry magazine. A pear-shaped diamond ring had been circled in blue ink. Beside it, Vanessa had written one word. Someday. I walked to my bedroom and opened the velvet box that held my engagement ring. Pear-shaped center stone. Halo of smaller diamonds. The same narrow split band. Even the tiny detail beneath the setting was nearly identical. When Adrian proposed, I had stayed awake all night staring at that ring. I had believed he had studied my taste and chosen something that belonged only to us. It had been imagined for Vanessa before he knew I would wear it. I placed the magazine page back inside the metal box. Then I added the ring. The following morning, Adrian's mother and Megan cornered me in the hospital corridor. Neither woman asked first about my father. Mrs. Whitmore reached for my hand. Evelyn, Adrian behaved terribly. No one is defending that. But he chose to build a life with you. Whatever he felt for Vanessa in the past does not erase that choice. He left our wedding for her. Because she was leaving the country. Emotions were high. He kissed her. Mrs. Whitmore lowered her voice. You were the woman he intended to come home to. Why throw away 3 years over a few emotional messages and one goodbye? I pulled my hand away. How long have you known Vanessa? She hesitated. Young people's relationships are not my business. You knew exactly who I meant when I said her name. Megan exhaled sharply. Of course we knew her. She used to spend every holiday with us. Mom even let her wear grandmother's sapphire bracelet. Silence followed. Mrs. Whitmore turned on her daughter. Megan. But the damage was done. The Whitmore sapphire bracelet had been presented to me at our engagement dinner. Mrs. Whitmore had clasped it around my wrist and said it was passed only to the woman expected to become part of the family. Vanessa had worn it first. The ring, the bracelet, the habits, the memories. I had been handed another woman's unfinished future piece by piece and told it was mine. You all knew, I said. Mrs. Whitmore's face tightened. That is unfair. You knew Adrian had not let her go. You knew he chose my ring from something she marked. You knew his friends called me a replacement. You simply needed someone stable enough to marry him so he would appear to have moved on. Adrian cared for you, she insisted. He would not have proposed otherwise. Then you may keep whatever version of his care you find acceptable. I took the sapphire bracelet from my bag and placed it in her palm. My attorney is preparing a list of the wedding deposits, cancellation fees, and damages. I will return every Whitmore family gift. My family expects reimbursement for expenses caused by the groom voluntarily leaving the ceremony. Megan stared at me. You want us to pay you? I want the contracts enforced. I opened the airport photograph on my phone. This is evidence of why the ceremony ended. Her face flushed. Mrs. Whitmore's careful politeness finally cracked. After everything our families have shared, you truly feel no obligation to show grace? I looked through the glass wall at my father sleeping beneath a cardiac monitor. While he was collapsing, your son was kissing someone else. I met her eyes. What part of that deserves my grace? After they left, my mother came out of my father's room. She had heard enough. Are you going to tell your father about the procedure? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Not until his heart is stronger. She did not tell me I should forgive Adrian for the baby's sake. She did not say I might regret ending a relationship while emotional. She simply pulled me into her arms. Then for now, she said, we take care of you. My father was discharged several days later. Ethan came to drive us home. When my parents were settled in the back seat, he handed me a thin folder. Inside was an invitation to submit my portfolio for a 6-week project contract at Northline Architecture. A year earlier, Ethan had reviewed my graduate work and invited me to compete for a place on the South Side Textile Mill redevelopment team. I had withdrawn before the formal review. Adrian disliked how often architecture projects required travel. He said marriage could not survive if both people treated work as the priority. He wanted a calm home, predictable dinners, weekends with his family. I had told myself compromise was part of love. So I stepped away from the project I had dreamed about since college. At the time, Ethan had not tried to stop me. He had only said, when the project becomes real, you can apply again. Your work will have to earn the place. I had assumed he was being polite. Now the opportunity was in my hands. You do not have to create a position because you feel sorry for me, I said. Ethan stopped at a red light. I am not offering you a position. I am offering you a review. He nodded toward the folder. You researched the textile mill before anyone on my current team. But you still need to pass the portfolio review and interview. I need a designer, Evelyn. Not a person to rescue. For the first time in days, the future did not look like an empty room. It looked like work. That night, I opened the old project files on my computer. My model of the abandoned factory appeared on the screen. Red brick walls, sawtooth roofs, rusted steel columns, huge windows clouded by years of dust. I had once imagined turning it into a public complex with a bookstore, studios, exhibition rooms, and space for young designers who could not afford downtown rents. Then wedding plans, apartment renovations, Whitmore family dinners, and Adrian's preferences had slowly pushed the idea into a forgotten folder. I worked until dawn. For the first time since the wedding, I did not wonder whether Adrian would call. I revised the model, rebuilt my portfolio, and sent the application to Northline's official review address. The email contained one sentence. I would like to be considered. I listed the apartment for rent and moved into my parents' guest room while my father recovered. My attorney arranged for Adrian's boxes to be delivered to his hotel. That evening, he called 23 times. I did not answer. His final text said, "The ring and that box are not what you think." I blocked the number. That phrase, I would learn, was the favorite defense of people caught beside undeniable evidence. It is not what you think. The kiss did not mean what you saw. The message did not mean what you read. The ring was not chosen for the reason written beside it. If reality became inconvenient, Adrian simply renamed it. Northline required 2 portfolio reviews and a formal interview. No one waved a step for me. I received the 6-week contract. Starting over was not cinematic. There was no triumphant music when I entered the office. No one applauded. The newest software had changed, building codes had been updated, and material costs looked nothing like the estimates I remembered. Some people knew about the wedding because the story had circulated through local architecture circles. A few assumed Ethan had hired me because of my father. Others assumed he had hired me because I was vulnerable and he wanted to be close to me. During my first presentation, the room tilted. I had returned to work too soon after the procedure. My vision darkened, and the model nearly slipped from my hands. Ethan called for a 10-minute break. He did not announce my medical history. He did not tell the team to be gentle with me. When I returned, he said, "Evelyn is responsible for her proposal. If it is weak, evaluate it by project standards. If it is strong, do not credit her father or me." Then he asked me to continue. I did. The first version of my plan failed the accessibility review. The second preserved too little of the original structure. The third was beautiful and too expensive. I argued with engineers, revised circulation paths, eliminated an entire glass addition, and rebuilt the budget line by line. To determine which walls could remain, I followed the structural team through every section of the abandoned factory. To study daylight, I spent 3 days on-site recording how the sun moved beneath the sawtooth roof. My body recovered slowly. My confidence recovered more slowly. But it recovered. 6 months later, our proposal won the city competition. When the announcement appeared on the conference screen, the office erupted. I stood among my team and remembered the broken piano note in the ballroom. For months, I had believed that sound marked the collapse of my life. Now it seemed more like a door slamming shut behind me. Construction began in early spring. A few weeks later, Megan came to the office. She looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup. Hair pulled back. A pale indentation circled the finger where her engagement ring had been. We sat in an empty meeting room. For several minutes, she held a paper cup without drinking. "I'm sorry," she said at last. I waited. My fiancé stayed in contact with his ex. He told me they were friends. He said he had chosen me, so I had no right to be threatened by history. Her mouth twisted. "At our engagement party last week," she called. He left before the speeches. I felt no satisfaction. Only a tired recognition. Megan's eyes filled. "I stood there with everyone staring at me, and I understood what I said to you." I understood how disgusting it was. "Yes," I said. She flinched, but nodded. "I'm not asking you to forgive Adrian. I came to tell you I was wrong." I studied her for a moment. "I accept the apology." Hope appeared on her face. "But we will not become family again. We will not become friends. Some damage does not disappear because the person who caused it finally understands." She looked down. "I know." Before leaving, she told me something else. Vanessa had truly planned to move to London. She had accepted the job and packed her apartment. But before sending Adrian the message on our wedding day, she had quietly changed her flight to the following morning. She had not told him. She wanted to know whether he would come, Megan said. She said if he left the wedding for her, it would prove she had not been the only one unable to move on. So Vanessa's departure had not been entirely false. It had been worse. She had turned it into a test. My wedding had been the table. My dignity had been the wager. Adrian had placed the bet without hesitation. He found out later, Megan continued. They had a terrible fight. Vanessa asked why he did not simply marry her if he loved her enough to leave you. What did he say? He did not answer. I was not surprised. Adrian loved Vanessa most safely when she existed in memory. She was the unfinished story his friends could romanticize, the impossible future no ordinary relationship could compete with. Living with her would require bills, schedules, disappointment, and choice. And what he missed about me was not necessarily me. He missed the woman who had made his life stable while asking for less than she deserved. "You do not need to bring me updates about them," I said. Megan wiped her eyes. "There is one more thing." She placed a brown hospital envelope on the table. Adrian found this at the bottom of the box you sent him. When he saw the date, he stopped speaking. My name was printed across the top. Inside was the ultrasound report. 7 weeks. No cardiac activity. I had placed it inside the folder with the ring papers after the procedure, then forgotten it when I packed his belongings. Megan looked at me with horror. You were pregnant? Yes. He did not know. He does now. Why didn't you tell him? I turned toward the window. Beyond the glass, cranes moved above the textile mill site. I tried. Vanessa called before I finished the sentence. Megan's face crumpled. He asked me what I had been about to say. Then he left again. She covered her mouth. For once, she had no defense for him. Adrian was waiting outside Northline that evening. He looked as though he had not slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, he crossed the sidewalk too quickly and nearly stumbled. Evelyn. His voice broke on my name. There was a baby? I stopped several feet away. There was. The color left his face. Why did you not tell me? I did. He stared at me. You asked what I meant when I said I had something too. I started to tell you. Vanessa called. His lips parted. I did not know. At the wedding, I doubled over in pain. You checked your phone and went to the airport. At the apartment, you saw my hospital bracelet. You asked why Ethan had brought me home, then turned around because Vanessa was breathing too fast. I held his gaze. You did not fail to know because I hid it well. You failed to know because every time there was a choice, you looked at her. His eyes filled. Where's the baby now? Gone. The procedure was the day you brought Vanessa into my home. He closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face. It was the first time I had seen Adrian cry. He had not cried when I canceled the wedding. He had not cried while my father was taken away in an ambulance. He had not cried in the airport photograph. Now he cried because he had discovered the existence of something he believed should have belonged to him. I'm sorry, he said. Evelyn, I am so sorry. He reached for my wrist. We can start over. I will cut Vanessa out of my life. I will do anything. We can have another wedding. We can have another child. I will make this right. I removed his hand finger by finger. A child is not a replacement part. You do not order another one because you regret missing the first. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. You still believe everything can be rescheduled, repurchased, or repeated until the outcome satisfies you. He shook his head. I love you. I had waited years to hear those words without hesitation. When they finally came, they reached nothing inside me. You love the empty space people leave behind, I said. For years, that space was called Vanessa. Now it is called Evelyn. That is not true. You only recognize someone as the love of your life after she no longer belongs to you. Building security approached. Adrian remained on the sidewalk while I walked inside. For months, he contacted me from new numbers. He explained that he had chosen the pear-shaped ring because he genuinely liked it. He explained that the metal box represented his youth, not his love. He explained that the airport kiss happened because both of them were overwhelmed. He explained that Vanessa had been brought to my apartment only because she had nowhere else to go. Every betrayal arrived with a reason. None of the reasons changed the result. When he needed to choose me, he did not. I blocked each number. Eventually, the messages stopped. Vanessa went to London. Before she left, she and Adrian tried to rebuild their relationship. It lasted less than 3 months. Adrian could not forgive her for changing the flight and using the wedding to test him. Vanessa could not accept that he had abandoned me for her and still checked my social media every day. He asked why she had manipulated him. She asked why, if he loved her so much, he called my name when he was drunk. The great love story survived because it had remained unfinished. Once dragged into ordinary life, it became suspicion, blame, and resentment. During their final argument, Vanessa said the most honest sentence either of them had spoken. I wanted proof that you still loved me. I never said I wanted to marry you. She accepted the London position and truly left Chicago. This time, Adrian did not go to the airport. But staying did not bring me back. The South Side textile mill opened the year I turned 30. We preserved the strongest red brick walls and the original steel roof structure. A glass walkway crossed the center of the building without pretending to be old. Sunlight entered through the restored sawtooth windows and fell across a bookstore, exhibition halls, community studios, and affordable workspaces for young designers. On opening day, reporters, city officials, former factory workers, and architecture students filled the central hall. I stood beneath the roof I had drawn hundreds of times and presented the project as lead designer. When I finished, applause rose around me. My father sat in the first row. His health had recovered, though my mother still watched his medication schedule like a military operation. His eyes shone. That, he told me afterward, is where my daughter was always supposed to stand. I looked around the building and realized I had gone weeks without dreaming about the wedding. The wound had not vanished. My life had simply grown around it until the wound no longer occupied every room. After the opening reception, Ethan and I stayed behind to inspect the final equipment installation. The crews left. Evening lights came on beneath the old roof. Ethan handed me unsweetened tea. "How do you know I don't drink sweet coffee anymore?" I asked. "Because your stomach hurts after you stay up all night, and sugar makes it worse." He said it casually, as though remembering my habits required no performance. I thought of Adrian arriving with blueberry cake. Blueberry had been Vanessa's favorite. Mine was a cinnamon apple scone from a small bakery near my father's campus. Adrian had passed that bakery hundreds of times and never remembered. Ethan gathered the inspection sheets. "Evelyn." "Yes, I like you." There was no dramatic pause. No music. He spoke with the calm certainty of someone presenting a conclusion after reviewing all the evidence. "Not because you needed help at the hospital," he continued. "Not because I think this is an opportunity to replace someone." He looked toward the center of the building. "I like the way you argue with engineers until your face turns red. I like that you can destroy 2 weeks of your own work when you know it is wrong and begin again the next morning. I like you now that you no longer need another person to confirm your value." I held the tea between my hands. Ethan did not step closer. "You do not need to answer tonight," he said. "You can say no. The project will not change. Your position will not change." I smiled despite myself. "Do you always leave people such an easy exit?" "It is not an exit." He met my eyes. "It is your choice." I did not answer that night. I spent nearly 3 months making sure that accepting a new relationship would not be an act of revenge, fear, or loneliness. I wanted to know that I could be alone and still choose him. 3 months later, our project received a national award for adaptive reuse. I traveled to New York for the ceremony. When I stepped off the stage, Ethan stood at the back of the crowd holding a paper bag from a bakery across town. Inside was a cinnamon apple scone. I walked to him. "Ethan." "Yes." "I have an answer now." He stopped breathing for half a second. I took his hand. "We can try." Our relationship was not dramatic. No one abandoned an airplane. No one stood in the rain all night. No friends posted captions about destiny. We disagreed about designs. We worked late and sometimes sent only 3 messages in a day. We carried laptops to dinner and argued over whether a wall should be preserved or replaced. But after every disagreement, we spoke clearly. He never asked me to make my career smaller so he could feel secure. He never made decisions for me and called it protection. He never compared my needs to another woman's pain and asked me to wait. I learned that stability did not mean the absence of conflict. It meant trusting that conflict would not cause the person beside you to leave you alone under everyone else's stare. A year later, Ethan proposed in a small restaurant after a 5-hour project meeting. We were both tired. My hair was tied up with a pencil. His sleeve had a coffee stain. He placed a new project agreement on the table. It offered me the role of co-lead on a cultural center in another city. Then he placed a small ring box beside it. Inside was a simple round diamond on a clean band. He had asked what I liked before he chose it. "This project would like a long-term partnership," he said. So would I. He opened the box fully. "Would you go to City Hall with me and apply for a marriage license?" I laughed until people at the next table looked over. Then I held out my hand. "Yes." When we began planning the wedding, the manager of the hotel where my first ceremony had ended called me. Part of the original deposit had remained as a credit under the contract. The hotel had changed management, and the new manager offered to let me use the ballroom before the credit expired. She carefully suggested another location. Some clients prefer not to return to a place connected to a painful event, she said. I looked out the window of my office. We will use it. The ballroom had not betrayed me. I did not want to spend the rest of my life avoiding a room just to prove I had once been hurt there. For the new wedding, I removed the pink drapery and the walls of roses. The space held white flowers, green branches, long wooden tables, and sunlight from the high windows. My original gown had been redesigned. The heavy skirt and endless train were gone. The new dress was clean, structured, and easy to move in. Along the waist, the seamstress embroidered the sharp line of the textile mill roof. That building, not a man, marked the place where I had returned to myself. When I entered the ballroom, the room became quiet before the applause began. Many of the guests had worked beside me. They knew what had happened 2 years earlier. More importantly, they knew what I had built afterward. Minutes before the ceremony, voices rose near the entrance. Adrian had arrived. He had no invitation. He wore a dark suit as though he had dressed for a wedding that still belonged to him. Security blocked him, but he called my name across the lobby. Every guest turned. I did not hide. I lifted my skirt and walked to the doors. Adrian had lost weight. The old confidence had drained from his face. For the first time, he looked like a man who understood that consequences were not temporary emotions he could wait out. Evelyn. His eyes moved over my dress. You are really marrying him? Yes. Here. His voice shook. Did you choose this place to punish me? For a moment, I could only stare. Even now, he believed my choices were organized around him. I chose this place because I like the light, I said. It has nothing to do with you. He stepped closer until security raised a hand. We were together for 3 years. You cannot erase that. I have not erased it. Then how can you stand here and marry someone else? By walking forward. His eyes reddened. Vanessa is gone. I have not spoken to her in more than a year. I threw away the box. I can buy a different ring. I can learn everything I should have known about you. You should not need to lose me before becoming curious about who I am. Give me one chance. The ballroom behind me had gone silent. 2 years earlier, I had stood in that same hotel and asked Adrian why Vanessa deserved a goodbye while I did not deserve an explanation. He had closed a car door in my face. Now he believed regret entitled him to reverse time. The chances did not begin after you were sorry, I said. He looked at me desperately. You had a chance to stay on our wedding day. You had a chance to ask about the hospital bracelet. You had a chance to respect my home. You had a chance every time your phone rang, and you decided whose pain mattered more. My voice remained steady. I gave you many chances. You used everyone to choose someone else. Tears slipped down his face. I love you. I believe that you believe that now. Then why is that not enough? Because I no longer need it. Ethan came into the lobby. He did not stand in front of me. He did not tell Adrian that I belonged to him. He simply extended his hand. The choice remained mine. I placed my hand in his. Adrian looked at our joined hands. He only appeared after me, he said. How do you know the ending would have been different if you met him first? I shook my head. It was never about first or second. I looked at Ethan, then back at Adrian. One man kept placing me inside the space another woman left behind. The other saw me from the beginning. Adrian's mouth tightened. So, this is revenge. You replaced me. No. I squeezed Ethan's hand. I stopped choosing a life that required me to disappear. Security escorted Adrian away. He did not fight them. He stood beyond the glass doors while they slowly closed. 2 years earlier, he had been the one leaving and I had been the one trapped inside. This time, I turned away first. The ceremony began again. My father walked with me down the aisle. His steps were strong. When we reached Ethan, he did not immediately place my hand into Ethan's. He looked at me and asked, "Are you certain?" "I am." Only then did he let go. Ethan still did not take my hand. He opened his palm and waited. As he had in the hospital corridor, in the office, and at the old mill, he left the decision with me. I placed my hand in his. The screen behind us came to life. There were no messages. No declarations about the one who got away. No photographs designed to prove that someone else's love was more important than mine. The video showed the Southside textile mill from the first day of demolition to the night the final lights turned on. The last image showed me in a hard hat, dust across my face, smiling in the center of the unfinished building. Ethan looked at the photograph. "That is the woman I fell in love with," he said. My eyes filled. Not because a man had finally chosen to marry me. Because after losing so much, I had found the person in that photograph again. Later, people asked whether returning to the same ballroom made me think about the groom who had left. Of course I remembered. Memory did not disappear simply because life became good. But the old wedding was no longer the center of my story. At the end of the night, Ethan and I left through the side doors. Wind lifted the edge of my dress. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No." I looked back as the last ballroom light went dark. 2 years earlier, I had stood inside and watched Adrian drive away. 2 years later, I took Ethan's hand and walked out by my own choice. I had not won a better groom as a prize. I had not defeated Vanessa. I had not proven anything to Adrian. I had simply stopped abandoning myself.